I'm Jason, and tonight we read from a real-life library book, checked out from a real-life library, the Oxford Dictionary of Nursery Rhymes. And it's what we're reading is the standard sort of Tom Thumb style of alphabet rhyme, right? Like A is for this, B is for this, things like that. But this one is especially interesting to me because it was written so long ago, and guessing in the 1800s, maybe as far back as the 1700s, that the rhyme was used. We didn't have the internet back then. We didn't have cell phones. We couldn't turn on a computer and suddenly learn all the knowledge that, that's greater than Alexander's library, right? Alexandria's library. So we would have to teach children how to live, what people were, what things were, what different professions were somehow, and we did it through rhymes and through stories and things like that. And so that's my master's degree in creative writing kind of getting in there. But this one is really interesting because this rhyme talks about different archetypes, different kinds of people, different professions, things like that, but also sort of gives a societal look at them of whether or not they're good or they're bad, or if there's a shortcoming, so keep an eye out for it. Keep listening for it. And sometimes what we would consider today to be, well, that's a stereotype. Well, back then, if there was a robber, well, you didn't know there was no, specifically and what makes me know this is the robber part, right? So with a robber, there was no anti-hero. There was no, good thing to a robber. You had to be careful for robbers because if you were robbed, there was no insurance, there was no appeal, there was no forensic system, there was nothing of that. If you were robbed and you were in deep, deep trouble. So with that sort of lens looking at these, I think it's so extra interesting. But here we go. The Tom Thumb alphabet of professions, I guess. A was an archer who shot at a frog. So now if I'm a kid, I know that an archer can shoot an arrow at a frog, which again, look through the lens of they had no clue what an archer was unless someone told them. There was no typing it in, and people even a lot of times back then could barely read. But all right, sorry, I keep getting sidetracked. Here we go. A is her archer who shot at a frog. B was a butcher and had a great dog. C was a captain all covered with lace. D was a drunkard and had a red face. E was an esquire with pride on his brow. F was a farmer and followed the plow. G was a gamester who had but ill luck. H was a hunter and hunted a buck. I, an innkeeper who loved to carouse. J was a joiner who built up a house. K was King William, once governed this land. L was a lady who had a white hand. They would regularly wear gloves, like ladies. The upper class would wear these white lacy gloves. M was a mister who hoarded up gold. N was a nobleman, gallant and bold. O was an oyster girl who went about town. A lot of the children, if they were impoverished especially, they would go down to the shore and gather oysters and shells and wander around town selling them. P was a parson and wore a black gown. Q was a queen who wore a silk slip. R was a robber who wanted a whip. S was a sailor and spent all he got. Well, I was in the Navy for 20 years, so I guess it's kind of right. T was a tinkerer and mended a pot. We couldn't go to the store and just buy a new pot. You would go to a tinkerer and they'd fix it. U was a user. Sorry, I lost my place. U was a user, a miserable elf. V was a vintner who drank all. V was a vintner, somebody who makes wine, who drank all himself. W was a watchman and guarded the door. X was expensive and so became poor. Y was a youth that did not love school. Z was a zany, a poor, harmless fool. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Good night.